So our next panel is not this one, so let me scan through this quickly, but it is Venture Building in Italy and Beyond. This panel is sponsored by Founders Factory. I've always been impressed by Brent Hoberman and what he's created in the Founders Forum, Founders Factory universe. Brent is the champion of startups in the UK, and I'm grateful for Damian, who is the COO of Founders Factory, to have set up this panel to sponsor Techtalia this year. And I'm really hoping it gets me some cred so that I can eventually get invited back to Founders Forum at some point. So I'd like to introduce Damian, Luca, Benedetta, and Davide from Lumen, who's also a sponsor of Techtalia as well. Okay, take it away.
Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you. Well, it's great to be here, and what a great day of content and talks that we've had, and just the opportunity to meet people in this awesome environment is incredible. We're going to talk about venture building in Italy, and we're going to sort of dial up the spice from the first question. I'm not going to introduce these people because you should know who they are. Benedetta, you have mentioned to me a couple of times that when you give aspiring entrepreneurs, Italian entrepreneurs, advice, you say to them, do not start your company in Italy, start it in a different place.
Yes.
Tell me why. Why?
Okay, first of all, because just the cost. I always told people, like my first company I started, it cost me less to take a flight, go all the way to London, and open a company in London than actually go next door to a notary in Milan to open a company. So we still have this really bureaucratic way of managing companies, and actually the regulation just changed. So we have a different registry if you want to be a innovative company, and now you have to put even more capital just to launch the company. So to open a company in the UK, you put like £1, and to open a company in Italy, you have to put 20,000 euros. So this is like already the first way you can see the difference. And so for me, then attracting investors, and I'm sure they can talk more about it also with the rest of the panel, it helps if you have a corporate structure that actually enables investors, but also employees, I must say, to be part of the company and the company's success. So employees and stock options, and then investors and having a easy cap table.
Got it. And so, Luca, we'll come to hear from you, Davide, in a moment. But Luca, you started Shop Circle as a UK company.
Yeah.
What would need to change if you were to make that decision again to establish it in Italy?
Right. It's a fair question, because if you think about the state of the economy, right, Italy is a good economy overall. It's the second manufacturer in Europe, the fourth in the world. Realistically, in the 80s, in the 90s, the GDP in Italy was actually higher than in the UK. But digitally, like Benedetta was saying, is very behind, right? And by saying that, I mean, bureaucracy is one of that. In the UK, I remember I opened up the company in 5 minutes from the gov.uk website. And then on top of that, there is the network and the ecosystem, which is also like extremely important. If you think about the definition of network, just 500 years, 600 years, miles away from here, just in these cities, there were like Leonardo da Vinci, Donatello, all these artists working together in the same place because they were copying each other, they were learning from each other. And now, if you fast forward by 500, 600 years, in tech, the places where this is happening are not in Italy right now, right? So it's in US, and London is by far the biggest hub for tech in Europe. And so, yeah, just the number of unicorns in London was like 10 times bigger than in Italy at the time. There were incubators and accelerators like Founders Factory. Actually, Damian was one of the first to trust us. Really, Davide was not.
I think that goes both ways, actually.
Yeah. And so like the network was way more developed, and I think there is, when you have the first exit, then there is more capital following and the other way around. And the last point is the ecosystem. I remember when we started actually pitching actively in Italy, because as an Italian, you want to go out and speak to people that come from the same country as you. And I was 27 years old at the time, and everyone was telling us, you guys siete troppo giovani, you're too young. And then American investors came, and everyone from Italy wanted to invest. But that's the classic sign of an immature ecosystem, right? When you need a confirmation from another country because your ecosystem is not mature enough. So all these points together made us take the decision at the time to start in the UK, and I think it was the right one. And now I can also compare it because we have a subsidiary in Italy, we have a lot of employees in Italy as well, and it's just easier to do things in the UK. But overall, I have to admit, I don't know whether you guys agree with me, things are changing over the last 5 years. You have Luca from Bending Spoon, Alberto from Satispay, companies are coming up and the investors are also following. Founders Factories here, many funds from abroad are also coming to invest more actively in Italy. The government is stepping up with GDP. They raise a lot of capital and they're investing a lot of capital. So I'm very optimistic about the future. And just living abroad for 12 years really makes you proud of where you come from. And I think it's one of the most unbelievable countries in the world, especially in terms of talent. So I think it's from now on is going to be easier to grow also because you start from a very small base and things are moving in the right direction. So I'm optimistic.
And also the incredible incentives for talent that is returning back to Italy to come back here and also as you've done. In fact, as you've both done, Davide. So you set up free trade in the UK, scaled that as an incredible operator, and then have started a fund, a very successful fund in Italy to back these entrepreneurs. What do you? When you look at the sort of common issues or avoidable issues that Italian entrepreneurs, Italian companies are having, what are the things that most frustrate you? What could we solve if we had that magic wand today?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Davide Fioranelli. I'm the CEO of Lumen Ventures and co-founder of Free Trade, which is a zero commission stockbroker for millennials in UK. We have raised 100 million up to 600 million valuation. I try to bring free trade in Italy in 2019, and I faced two big challenges. One was regulatory framework, basically just for launching a waiting list in Italy. I was at risk of facing a criminal charge for unauthorized financial activities, and that's crazy because there is no way that you can start an authorization process without any sort of marketing testing. And then the other challenge was about millennials' financial culture. So basically, Italy ranks 44 globally in terms of financial culture of millennials, and we are behind countries like Congo and Zimbabwe. And since we are execution-only platform, was quite impossible to launch free trade in Italy. But I think today Italy represents a good opportunity for scaling and growth for two main reasons. One is Italy is the fourth largest economy in Europe, but ranks 13th in terms of VC investment and 21st in terms of VC investment per capita. So there is a huge room for scale. And then I think another point is about competition. So the competition in Italy is not as crazy as London, US. So if you are a solid founder, you can raise your first round in Italy, I think.
And what are you hearing, maybe to continue with you, Davide, from founders as they're seeking to scale those companies, as they're sort of accessing larger and larger rounds of capital and other sort of international networks? Where are the challenges being felt?
So I think today the Italian funder, they should act globally, start thinking about their product, raise the funds, the first rounds in Italy, and then try to attract international VC. Also because on average in Italy, today the deals are like 30% cheaper compared to the more mature ecosystem. So for me, the founder today, they should like try to achieve the metrics and then attract international VC. Also because the VC ecosystem in 2021 is completely changed. Today, unicorns are like 100 million recurring revenue and EBITDA positive, so forget about 1 billion valuation. So the world is completely changed.
And Benedetta, the same question to you. What, you've had an amazing career as an operator and joining Rocket Internet very early, running Uber in Spain and Italy, which sounds like a very interesting. We could have a whole panel just about that experience. And multiple times successful founder, investor, etc. Advisor to many companies. What are you seeing as you're working with these founders, specifically in Italy, and how they're thinking about the future?
I think that the most important thing, so first of all, it's not my fault if Uber doesn't work in Italy. I didn't manage, but unfortunately, I tried everything, but it didn't work. That's a little bit the problem with the Italian market. I think that French entrepreneurs, UK entrepreneurs, German entrepreneurs have the luxury to say, okay, I can really test in my market and start scaling it here and become big enough and have like strong shoulders before I go somewhere else. And Italians don't have this luxury. I think about it a little bit more like probably Israel, where there's a lot of talent, but they don't have a big enough market to grow the companies. So they have to be like international from day one. Everything in their company has to be in English so they can attract talent from abroad. They should think about already having their first few customers abroad if they're doing B2B. If they're doing B2C, understand how to work on having a company that is not too Italian focused. And so this mindset is super important for me in terms of success. They can raise capital from Italy. I think there's great people who have come back. Lumen was one of the first that came back and started like a VC, like people from abroad who came back and started VC funds here. There's a new initiative of Italian founders that have pulled together, and it's called Italian Founders Fund, where it's all Italian ex-founders and operators that sort of are promoting the new ecosystem. So there is a backbone to support talent. I just think the talent mentality has to be international first, think big, and unfortunately you don't have this country to be your first test. I believe it's not enough. And I see it with VCs from abroad. If a company only has an Italian market, they see there is a country risk on the company, and so they don't see how it can succeed. I've backed entrepreneurs who've started from abroad from day one, and then VCs don't care if they're Italian or if even they have an Italian company, actually, because they see the potential.
I think that is going to be music to Eleanor's ears, who leads all of our investments in Italy and is in the audience and constantly talks to founders about being international from day one and being able to sort of translate their story in a way that is going to be heard and taken seriously by international investors.
And it forces them to be a bit more ambitious. I think this has changed a lot. Probably you saw it also. Like maybe 5 years ago, you would see decks where people would say, okay, I'm going to have like 1 million in revenue in 5 years. And now it's people who say, I want to be like a unicorn in like 5 or 10 years, right? So you can see the ambition level is growing.
That's very interesting. We'll come grab some questions from the audience in just one moment. But Luca, before we go there, when you have an incredibly international vantage point running Shop Circle. When you see sort of characteristics from either the London ecosystem, the New York ecosystem, or any other tech ecosystems, do you see any differences between how Italian founders are starting their companies versus founders that you will deal with in some other markets?
Well, like I was saying before, the system is totally different, right? In London is 6 times bigger than Milan as an hub, or like UK in comparison to Italy, and Germany is 4 times bigger. So it's objectively there, right? The big difference. Then going back to the point that Benedetta raised, I think VC is a world of outliers, right? And in Italy, we don't have the advantage that they have in Spain or in the UK, where they speak a language that is very broad, right? So English is spoken by billions of people in the world, Spanish as well. In Italy, you rely on a market of 59 million people at the moment, which is actually declining in terms of population. And so you need to speak English, right? So you need to speak English if you want to sell abroad, if you need to hire abroad, if you need to raise capital abroad. And I think generally the English level in Italy is pretty bad, and no one speaks about it. So that's the first difference, in my opinion. It's, you know, if you just rely on the Italian market, is usually not enough, right? Most of the companies, even if you think about the scale up, then it's always a problem of going abroad, like Casav or Satispay, and there is always a ceiling, because even if you penetrate and dominate the Italian market, with the new metrics, right, where the valuation are going down, it's not even enough to have $200 million ARR sometimes to get the unicorn valuation. So just having that global mentality is something that you're forced to do in Italy, and people should study English more, or better, like the government should probably force people to study more English, maybe like but 2-3 times increase compulsory English at school for everyone, I would say. And then the second point is, obviously, it's just like, you know, the government doesn't make it easy at all to start a company here. And I think it's probably like the biggest investment that you can make, the biggest change is to make it easy for entrepreneurs to start a company in their own country, because in modern economies, that's how wealth is created, right? If you make it very easy, and I'm speaking about tax relief, I'm speaking about how easy it's to create a company, hire people, sometimes fire people as well. It's a tremendous return for a country. And it's something that in principle is very easy to think, but then it's very difficult to put into practice. So I don't necessarily think that the difference is in the talents. I think, you know, I've been living and working abroad with international people for 11 years. Some of the most unbelievable talents that I've met, especially on the tech side, developers, are Italians. I don't think it's a matter of lack of ambition. I think it's also the limited country that we have, the lack of English, and the government and the framework where they work. So when we study, actually, like, you know, when we started Shop Circle, we thought about it. Should we start in Italy or in the UK? And we were saying to people, you know, we want to start an SRL. American investors, they wouldn't want to invest just because you had the same idea, same people, but if you were in Italy, they were not going to invest. If you were an LTD in the UK, they wanted to invest. So, you know, there are some differences which I think are in the ecosystem rather than the people starting it. And the proof of that is people going abroad, Italian people going abroad, and then being super successful, right? There are so many examples.
There's so many. Yeah, and you are joining obviously have joined those ranks. Ben, you had a question, I think.
Thank you. Now, it probably has the most interesting tax regime for foreigners moving to Italy. That's what I understood in Europe. I mean, of course, not compared to a location like Dubai, but within Europe. How do you think this will impact the rise of the startup ecosystem with like second-time founders coming to Italy to start new businesses?
So actually, I worked on the first draft of that tax scheme when Calenda was the Ministry of Economics. And the idea was actually to sort of take advantage of Brexit that was coming and get like more people that would move from London to Italy. And the numbers show that there has been a move. The problem is that people come to retire. Like a lot of you come to Italy. If I ask any of you why you come to Italy, most of you will come for holidays, right? You don't come to build a business. And that's still, the tax incentive has it. So you have a bit more of an angel investor world, if you want, which is like retired people who've done well. But I actually, one of the things that struck me is like, you know, Marchetti was talking today, but there is no Yux mafia, like there was a Skype mafia, or there's been mafias from a lot of other companies. And Yux is like a great example of a unicorn. So there must be something inherent in the culture whereby like even huge unicorn in Italy hasn't managed to create the same kind of like effect. So the people who are coming back, there's a lot of them, but they generally use the money to buy homes in Tuscany and wine.
And I've just for I think that's not just problem of Italian country, but also European one. Just spent 1 month in Silicon Valley, and the big challenge that I see today is the American financial power compared to the European one. So basically the top US company like Google, Facebook, they can approach the European talent offering like 5 times the current salary, which is almost impossible to say no. And this is a big problem because we have to act like a single unique market as Europe if we want to compete against America, US, and China, other markets.
Yeah, but that's also where the opportunity is, though, right? So with ShopCircle, we sell mostly in the US. 60% of the revenue comes from there, but the workforce is here. So the developers are between Italy and Bosnia. And it's the same quality of developers in San Francisco, if not better sometimes when they come from Politecnico di Milano, Politecnico di Torino, but they cost 1/3, right? So that's also like an opportunity to build here and sell somewhere else. And there is a huge arbitrage in the workforce cost, in my opinion.
But you have to keep your best talent in Italy, no? It's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
easy.
Yeah.
We've got time for one more question.
I was just going to make thank you. I was going to implore you. I've raised money for 68 companies, had 27 exits. They're not all American. You guys should stop thinking this way. I mean, first of all, you're a million times better than France. It's the worst country in the world I've ever worked with in terms of entrepreneurs. So just be proud of who you are, push your strengths, the best design in the world. I think your English is fine. I've met a lot of great entrepreneurs here. So stop believing this and just start believing that you're almost as good as the UK, which is the absolute best environment in Europe. You got the French beat, you can beat the Germans. Just believe in yourselves.
There we go. Powerful way to end it. Well, thank you very much for the panel here. And thank you.
You start
Thank you, everybody.
Right, will you
Get a photo.
indulge me? Because it's obviously a Saturday. I've got a 10-year-old son. I said I'd take a photograph of what I was doing. Can we get a selfie with everyone in the background? I'm going to stand on this end, otherwise my arm is not going to be able to reach. Okay, on the count of 3, I want everyone to say Pecorino. 1, 2, 3. Pecorino. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What a fun panel. Thank you, Damian. Really appreciate that.